Sometimes to truly make a change, you have to do something big, something dramatic, and something that ensures that you never go back to the emotional and physical traps that have made you so unhappy. One of the best days of my life was the day I smashed my scale. I loved it so much, I think we should all do it. And to make rejecting diet culture even more exciting, I'm giving away free advice and prizes, including a full year of body kindness coaching with me. So to join, visit bodykindnessbook.com/BK Scale Smash. That's bodykindnessbook.com/BK Scale Smash. There you give your name and email and you'll get the motivational coaching from me. Lots of ideas for how you can participate right there on the page. And I look forward to joining you all summer long while we work together to just tell the world that we don't need scales, we don't need judgment, we don't need criticism. What we need is body kindness. Hey there. So before we get into the show, I just wanted to cue things up for you a bit. So in this episode, we discuss weight concerns, and my guest is actually a fellow registered dietitian. And that's important because you'll see when we get into the conversation, she's actually talking to me because she had reached out personally with an issue she was having with a family member who has been on a million diets and was thinking of trying the HCG diet, which is absolutely a horrible idea, and didn't know how to address it in a loving and kind way. So that sparked it. But then we're also talking about how she gets my emails and finds them personally helpful. And, frankly, she just told me she was really struggling with, likes the idea of body kindness, but struggling with how do you actually do that? And I get it. I also had a really challenging time evolving to where I am today. And even, I have my moments. And so I think part of this sort of bottom line I wanted to lay out for you is that nobody's perfect and we're all humans together. And we all come at this from a different place with different experiences and a different mindset. So I think it's very important to practice non-judgment and meet people where they are. So in this conversation, early on, Holley says, well, how can I still love my body if I want to get to a healthier place? And, there was a lot in that question for me, mostly that the idea that a healthier place meant something in her body would need to change in order for that to happen. And we ended up talking about some research that she was not aware of, Kevin Hall's research and metabolism, which if you've listened to all the shows, you probably have heard before. So you're just going to hear me share that with Holley. And she also had some confusion around the idea. It's not an idea around the health at every size philosophy and the principles and what they mean. And, I think just personally struggling with the idea, right, based on diet culture, that, that it's healthy at every size. And so I talk with her a little bit about that too, so that she can have some clarity that it's much more about the approach and respect. And then we wrap up really by kind of talking about that caregiver voice and how important it is to cultivate that. And anyway, I just, really wanted to share this episode with you and just let you know that no matter where you're at, it's okay to be exactly there. We actually discuss if her family member was my client, how I would handle that, even if there was a weight concern. And absolutely, I see clients who have weight concerns. Who wouldn't have a weight concern in our diet culture? It's most people, but it's the issue of how do you help people put the weight concerns on the back burner. So I really hope you enjoy our conversation, and I really hope you get something special out of it, whether you are a helping professional and really just coming at this idea of body kindness and how to be anti-diet, even though you still want to change your habits, but you're also hoping that you'll see changes in your body. And, it's a really tricky, tough subject to tackle. Some people make behavior changes and they do see changes in their body and then they're happier and they celebrate them. I've also seen, mostly with my clients, that those who do see changes, it's surprisingly not the types of changes they thought it would be or they hoped. And so then at some point they have to process some sort of peace or even a sadness or grief that this vision they had in their head about how their body should be, they would never get again. And, I've got 2 kids in my very early 40s, but I'm still past that milestone. And absolutely, there is no way that my body looks like it did when it was 20 or even 15. And when I was 15, I had worse of a critic than I do now. So some of it comes, I think, with time and just being open. So no matter where you're at, know it's okay. Whether you're someone who's reading Body Kindness and has nothing to do with the helping profession, you're looking for help, or you're a helping professional and maybe you kind of feel a bit of shame for why you're struggling with something. And so I really do want to say it's okay to be there and just listen and keep listening and reading and asking and doing all those things. I love emails on this episode or any episode. Love your comments about the podcast, Rebecca at bodykindnessbook.com. Also love the ratings and reviews if you can take a moment for that. And I really hope you enjoy this show. And I'm very grateful to Holley for coming on and just being honest about where she is and what she struggles with and, taking that first step on the journey. I'm ready to dive in if you are. I'd love for you to share just kind of how this all came about. Like maybe start with the email and because this is personal to you, not only for your own health and well-being and raising your kids in a way that you feel good about, but also you have, and as do I, people in your family with weight concerns / health concerns, and you want to be helpful and you're not sure what to do. Is that the gist? You want to kind of tell the story a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm the same way. I've had 2 children. I grew up my entire life kind of feeling like I was a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and, was always in the gym. I did Weight Watchers in college, and I look at those numbers of what I weighed then or look at pictures, and I was like, man, I looked good. But, compared to my other college friends, maybe I was 20 pounds heavier than them, but still I look back now and I'm like, whoa, I would love to look like that. But at the same time, the reality is, okay, I've had 2 children. I'm 20 years older. How do I get settled and happy in and where I am? And so a question came into me from a close family friend, and he was concerned and asking a question about his sister and sent me a message asking me what my take on the HCG diet was, and that his sister was wanting to do it because his brother had done it and lost all this weight and had, quote unquote, tons of energy. And I want to say that he told me his brother was eating between 400 and 600 calories, working out a ton and following this diet. And so his sister was wanting to do it. And he told me his sister is extremely heavy. She's had 2 children. She's tried every diet in the book, and he feels like this is just one more, and what would I recommend? And so, in my mind, I thought, well, sure, we can tell her about here's how you can make some small changes and swaps and set small goals and, all the things that we're taught to be able to help people with when it comes to losing weight. And she's not a client of mine, and I don't do weight loss. I don't counsel patients in weight loss or weight management or body kindness or intuitive eating. So it was one of those things where I thought, it really sounds like she's been on this roller coaster for so long. She would probably fare much better at this point, instead of doing something like one more diet to try to lose a quick 10 pounds that will come back as 20, to read your book and look more into it. So I sent Rebecca an email explaining this story and asked, what is your take? Because as a dietitian, I'm hearing so much more about body kindness and intuitive eating and fat acceptance, but how do I tell this person who is unhappy, feels unhealthy, feels like, her health statistics and numbers as far as labs and whatnot go, he was telling me, we're not great. But how do I say, yeah, maybe weight loss would be better for your body in the long run? I'm not your doctor, so I can't really know. But but maybe we need to go beyond just what's the next fad diet and look at some underlying issues and learn how to love yourself. And how does that then equate to finding what your total health is? And so I sent you that email saying, how do I even tell him what to tell her when really there's so much more going on here? And then I posed the question, is it possible to have body kindness if you are indeed wanting to lose weight or trying to lose weight? And even for me personally, I think about the extra weight that I gained when I was taking fertility medicine and when I had my girls. And certainly, there are days I put clothes on and I think, maybe I need to go take another walk, or maybe I should have skipped that last glass of wine or bowl of ice cream or whatever that is. And so, it's personal for me too, to wonder, how can I still love my body at the same time, but want to get to a healthier place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's you, your friend's sister are not alone. You can join the millions of other people who are dissatisfied in their bodies. I think the stat is about 80%.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of unbelievable if you think of that number, that here we are all walking around, body bashing, not feeling good enough, judging ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's where, I got to you can't hate yourself healthy. And that's something that is an important thing to understand, is that we are all part of this diet culture that basically says you aren't good enough unless you're trying to lose weight. That's the standard. And it keeps us oppressed in our bodies because it keeps us feeling like the body is the problem. It keeps us focused on the appearance, judging the body, because we have a thin ideal, right? So it's like our culture says, this is what you should be going for. This is what's beautiful. This is what's lovable. This is what's acceptable. So of course, why wouldn't a person have a weight concern if they feel that they are an outlier? And others have experienced outright oppression. So I've had stories from clients. One client went in to saw a brand new gynecologist. And like we all know, that sort of compromising position you're in that, scenario. And the exam was over, but she's still in the paper gown. And as the doctor leaves to let her get dressed, says, I hope to be seeing less of you next year.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And it was traumatic. This particular client had come so far. She beat binge eating. She stopped chronic dieting, even though her parents, mom in particular, still struggle with body image issues and chronic dieting. Like, she actually had gotten healthier and kind of, mentally and physically kind of past all that stuff. And she said, she's like, I can tell I'm better, because before, like, that just would have sent me in isolation, emotional eating, shame spiraling, because of course, if, this doctor is saying my body's not acceptable, but she, through counseling and changing her mindset and how she talks to herself and how she takes care of herself, she actually had strength. And she came to me and we had a discussion about what to do about it. And long story short, she ended up deciding that she would leave the practice. She would write a letter professionally explaining why, explaining the scenario, in the hopes that the practice could learn and grow, so that if she could help at least one person from enduring body oppression and body shame from the medical profession, that would be enough for her. And then she told her referring physician in person what happened. And the physician apologized and said that she would let her practice know, and that her practice would need to consider whether or not they would even be referring to this specialist group anymore, because they are not aligned with body shaming people.
Right.
Our whole world, since the age of 1, we start to become attuned to the world around us and our bodies in this space. And we pick up negative messages from our environment, schools, family, everywhere. And those negative messages can thrive and grow. So when I read the diet magazines, it grew. I tried a million different diets before I was like, okay, this is just crazy. I can't do this anymore. You hit like diet rock bottom. But it's like, if we understand that there's this whole system that's designed to keep us hating ourselves, to sell us, the billions, 50 some $billion a year, right? Your friend with the HCG, that's just one of the many. And what's tough about that in this scenario, right, is that your friend had social proof, right? Proof that it works. And plus this fear and hope and like, oh, maybe this will be the thing that makes a difference. And what it all comes back to is that we have to peel apart these layers, and we have to, accept we're in a diet culture that makes us think the most important thing we can do is work on our weight and our appearance. Secondly, the medical community in many ways is possessed by weight bias and diet culture. So a place that we should trust often gives us unhelpful or misinformation, and it's even more confusing. And then you layer this idea of, well, I've tried all these different diets and nothing seemed to work. Or you even said in your story, lose 10 to gain 20. That actually is scientifically true. I'll include some links in the show notes, but there is really interesting recent research on humans. There's 2 studies I would point to. Both are from Kevin Hall out of NIH. The first one was definitely very small scale because it was a 6-year follow-up from the study from Biggest Loser contestants. And there was a great piece that was covered in the New York Times, like layman style, but it was also covered in the journal Obesity. And Kevin Hall is an NIH researcher. He actually came through like biostatistics or something like that. He is not a health at every size person. He studies the brain and behavior. And basically what he found in the Biggest Loser study was that 6 years after, so wait a minute. So they go on the show, they lose a bunch of weight, they kind of do right the gold standard of eating and exercise, and definitely way more extreme. Like, that's not really a health show. I get that that's extreme. But he does cite in his paper that similar effects have been seen even on that sort of slow and steady type of approach. But the idea in this is like, I'm trying to control the body. I'm trying to make it lose weight through manipulation of cutting calories on purpose and exercising a certain amount of calories also on purpose to push the body into weight loss. And what he found was that our hormone leptin crashes, the hormone that says we're full, it crashes with weight loss. And we also have a metabolic adaptation, meaning that our metabolism slowed down.
Right.
So then these contestants regained the weight. And what happened was they expected the leptin to fully restore as weight was regained to be comparable to any other person of their size. And what they found is leptin only reaches about 50% of the level as they would expect for contestants now at their size. And the metabolism never fully recuperates back. So one comparison is this dieter, Danny Cahill, who was on season 6, he now metabolically has to eat 800 calories a day less than another man his exact size. So at the new higher weight, he has to eat 800 calories a day less. That's like getting rid of his lunch because he lacks enough of the hormone leptin that says, I'm full. I don't need to eat anymore. And his metabolism is slower. So basically what it shows is that through dieting, in the long term, you end up fighting hunger, you end up dealing with insatiable cravings, and even when you eat, it's hard to get full and satisfied. And so, there's that study, and then the second one he came out with was 200 folks, double-blind study, was for people with diabetes, with overweight and obesity, and basically what they showed is they had a baseline amount of calories, they cut calories down, the people lost weight. We can prove that we can help people lose weight, but what happens is he identified, which I think is supportive of our set point theory, he identified a negative feedback loop that happens in our brains, and it sends a drive to eat craving and signal that's 3 times the baseline level. So these people really did fight the urge to increase their calories back to baseline, but the drive to eat did not decrease until they increased their calories back to where it was at baseline. And the reviewers said, we can be confident that there is nothing in the person's cognition. They're not giving up. There's nothing in the cognition. This is a process that's happening in the brain that is outside of human control. And
wow.
I mean, that was just November 2016. So these are very new studies. And so, we as dietitians like to give the evidence-based approach. And with Body Kindness, it's not saying you're not allowed to lose a pound. The whole point is about giving up the idea of controlling weight. And really, right. Body Kindness is about, well, how do I create a better life? What does a better life look like to me? And it's difficult because you need to focus on your habits and what you think is good for you while right. healing from dieting while you live in a diet culture. So I know I kind of rambled for a bit, but I'm curious as to what you think about that sort of basically a short pitch of the science does not support that focusing on weight loss by cutting calories is an effective long-term solution for most people.
No, I think that I had not heard those studies and it makes sense. And I think there's going to be so much more research in the next 5 years, 10 years. Probably just in this next year, because I think there's so much research where people are looking into the brain, looking into the hormones like leptin, like you said, and looking at the gut as well, and the role that plays, and how the hormones are talking to the gut and what's going on in the gut. I think gut health is going to be it already is huge and booming. And I'm not talking about eat your gummy probiotics, but really how gut affects everything from our moods to our behaviors, certainly to our cravings and whatnot. So there's a lot in this world, in this realm, that's going to be continuing to come out. However, I think just like anything, the adoption will be slow, because I think it's the reason people listen to, the Food Babe or other celebrity,
gurus.
Gurus. Yes. Thank you. That this is, they give a straight solid answer, whether it's based on science or not. They say this and it's this way. And people have a hard time with science. I think science is continuously changing. We're constantly learning new things. And so it makes the messages change sometimes because, maybe back in the 70s and 80s, that was the message. And now we're about weight loss and whatnot. And now slowly and surely we're learning more and what this cutting calories means. And really when you're cutting those calories, you just are changing the quality of life. I think about a story I shared with you and some of the other dietitians on Facebook recently about a big name celebrity that really does a lot in the family, mommy, entrepreneur, girl power, mom power, woman power world. And she posted this picture of herself looking absolutely miserable because she was on the Whole30 diet. It was all about this deprivation. It's like that. Why is that? Is it a quality? How is this a quality of life? And how at the end of this, is it really going to affect you? Is it worth suffering for 30 days? And I'm not knocking Whole30. I know that, I don't want someone to start sending me hate emails about, I have friends that have done it and they say they feel better and have more energy and great if that is what works for you. I'm not knocking it. I think it's just the point that as a society and as culture, we aren't looking to the scientists for this amazing information. We're not even looking to the dietitians a lot of times. We're looking to celebrities to drive where we go and the decisions that we make. And just like you said, it goes back to this image of always needing to be thin and the fat shaming and everything else. And I think about and see some of the shows that are on TV now. And of course, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of them. But, the girl that is the star of the show is this amazing dancer. And by society's terms, she might be considered obese. Maybe even by her doctor would be considered obese. And then I look at her and she is happy and the life of the party and dancing and happy and accepting of herself. And that's what a lot of the show is about. And so it's encouraging to see some TV stations putting people that look probably like the majority of us on TV and saying, hey, look at you can be like this, that have put normal, regular people on their covers. And I mean, even Amy Schumer, I can't remember her last name ever, yes, thank you, where she's kind of saying, back off, people. This is my body. I'm successful. I'm happy. I'm like, props to you, chick. Whatever works. And so it's encouraging to see that there is a slow change in the media to put people on covers and on TV that look like the rest of us. Because when you think about the statistics of where America's weight is now, if you're looking at a scale and whatnot, and where are we, there are very few people that are this extreme thin that a massive amount of society is wanting to attain. The rest of us are all kind of status quo and plugging along. And it's sad that in our brains, we have this, we can't just be happy with where we are. I think there's so much missing out. And as the mom of two little girls, that's something that I am very keenly aware of. And I already observe Ellie, my oldest, looking at magazines in a doctor's office or in the grocery store checkout line. And, she equates makeup with looking beautiful. And we're all into princesses. And I'm not knocking the princess culture. I mean, this is a whole other topic we can go on. We are all for princesses and princess girl power. I mean, I think we found a fun way to make that about being strong and bold and brave. But at the same time, she does equate my very few pair of high heels that I have with, here's mommy's shoes she wears when she wants to look beautiful. And I'm like, mommy can look beautiful without high heels. Mommy rarely wears high heels, or without makeup or whatever that is. And so, that's whether it's those types of ideals or weight or whatever else, it's, just like you said, it starts at the age of 1, probably even before that. You look at the cute chubby babies and you're applauding these little bitty babies with these teeny rolls and, oh, I love them. And I don't want her to lose these rolls. And you're at that age, you're looking at tiny babies and paying attention to that. And I'm totally guilty. I mean, I loved every little roll and dimple in my girls as little babies. But it's sort of like when they're tiny, you want them to be chubby and happy and everything else. But then there's this whole culture that as they get older, you want them to look a certain way and go a certain way. So, but it's confusing. I mean, I think there's all of this. And of course, there's the mental part of it. But then it's also confusing that, like you were saying, healthy at any size, or does it always mean that? How does that work? If I am by the books or by the scales at my doctor's office overweight, or I'm obese or whatever that is, and my blood pressure's high or my cholesterol's up, I would be curious how you advise when someone comes to you and says, here's where I am. I want to be good to myself. And kind of like the girl that I shared in the email, as an expert in this, how do you advise, or what do you say that here's where they are, and maybe here's where their labs are? What are your steps to encourage them as far as getting to those healthy labs when they can, if it's not a major genetic thing, and finding their happiness in whatever size they are at the same time?
Sure. Well, yeah. So I took a few different notes of some things that we'll start with. That was kind of a broad question. All over the place. Lots of little things to bring up. But so we'll start first with the health at every size approach. So I do think there's a lot of confusion around that. And essentially, health at every size is a set of principles that were created and, registered as a trademark and everything for people to use as guideposts by the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health. And, that's where we need to be careful about looking at our own weight bias that's a result of diet culture when we say, well, everyone can't be healthy at every size. That is not what the principles say. And in fact, they address frequently asked questions, that of course there's going to be people at extreme low weights or extreme high weights, and frankly, across the weight spectrum that may, as an individual, not have health at the present moment, right? But we also know that genetics is the primary indicator of that, and behavior can make an impact, but not as much as we think, right? So if we're purely talking about health, it's roughly around somewhere between 14 and 17%, I believe, of your habits has an influence. So it's not insignificant, but in our diet culture that conflates weight with appearance, we automatically say, oh, do this and you will be healthier. You will lose weight and you will be healthier. Right. Health isn't, that's actually called healthism, this idea that the most important thing everyone can do is pursue health. But also, there are people, let's look at Bob Harper, right? The one telling the fat people, you're going to die any day now if you don't take control of your life, who almost died. Exactly. He did. And I feel bad for him, right? But he had a genetic, and he stood there and said it was genetics. He could do that because he was a thin person. A fat person could never say that because they're going to be judged based on their appearance. So the principles at Health at Every Size, they're about being weight inclusive, meaning that we're not going to judge, we're not going to pathologize and say, if you weigh this much, you must be unhealthy. It's about it being inclusive. The weight is the number. We're inclusive of any weight as a principle. We're not going to pick a certain arbitrary number and say, this is unhealthy and judge it as so. The second is a focus on health enhancement. And so that's whether it's through policies or in our case, working in writing or with individuals, that the focus is on improving well-being. And when you're working with individuals, it's the individual context of what are their physical needs, what are their economic concerns. My dad is a janitor, so I'm not going to give him kale and quinoa salads and kale smoothies, or the moon dust Gwyneth Paltrow stuff over and again. I'm going to recommend stuff that's going to fit his budget. So it's just understanding that there are many things that come into our health enhancement, even like emotional, spiritual needs, that health is not just physical. It's not just appearance focused.
Absolutely.
The third is about giving respectful care, and just that no matter what a person is coming to see us for, we will respect their bodies. We will help meet them where they're at, and we will care for them giving our best knowledge and experience with respect to their economic status, race, gender, sexual orientation, that we understand weight stigma, and that we will continue to provide respectful care for them. There is a principle around eating, and it's basically in line with what I would say in line with intuitive eating, but it's this idea, the focus of eating is about well-being. So it's flexible, it's individualized, working on your attunement for hunger and satiety, meeting your nutrition needs. And in there, I would add, like as a dietitian, I would add that this is individual. If you have a diabetes diagnosis, and the body kindness layer would say, and you care about creating a better life, and part of your better life is doing the best you can to manage your disease, well, we know there is going to be guidelines for nutrition. Right. So that nutritional need for that person may include medical nutrition therapy because they care about managing this disease. Or you mentioned in your family friend that there was some abnormal lab values that needed attention. So that's where that would come into place. Also eating for pleasure, and doing this rather than an externally regulated eating plan like what we were taught in school. Here's the menu for this, just follow this and you'll be fine, with the purpose of trying to control weight. And then the fifth one is about life enhancing movement. So it's like supporting physical activities that the person is able to do in their current body that supports their interests. And it's very individualized. So when you actually look at the principles, like to me, I just feel like it's a no-brainer. Like it sounds like good care, but it's not labeling. It's not saying, oh, health at every size means not giving a shit about your health or something.
Exactly. You've got to pay attention. But I love what you said about it's not just the numbers, or how that looks to us, but the mental health. And I'm a big mental health advocate. I always have been, just from my family history and whatnot. And I think mental health is a huge part of how all that works. I mean, you can look great by America's standards and be completely, so sick, and it's in the head, and it's sad. I mean, and I think that there's a lot of people that are suffering, through depression and anxiety and whatnot, and how they treat themselves and how they feel and how they cope is often ends up being reflective, and it kind of can be a vicious cycle. But I definitely agree with looking at the emotional health, the spiritual health, and the person as a whole, not just the person as their appearance or what their cholesterol number is.
Right.
That's
well, let's take a couple seconds and go back to your family friend and just hypothetically say, because I do counsel people, so say she was in DC, came into my office, and came in with weight concerns, and she brought in her labs. And I know we don't know the details of labs, not great. I don't know if you have any other information, but let's just say that there was abnormal labs. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be weight neutral in the session. I'm not going to make any judgments based on how the person looks. I know that my job is to be a compassionate listener and to, I really open up sessions with, tell me what brings you to come and see me, right? And I want to let them talk and try to establish a connection and really understand their past and what's currently going on, because something, and I don't expect people who don't counsel clients to really get this, and even dietitians who do may not fully grasp the idea that dieting is actually a traumatic event, right? Like you said, mental health, right? It hurts your mental well-being. It makes you feel not good enough. It biologically hurts you. I mean, it is a trauma. And if we've dieted chronically, or which is considered more than one or two times, we've put our body through a repeated trauma. And so as their clinician, I want to make sure that I am not contributing to a repetition of the trauma, right? So I want to hear what's been going on and what they're concerned about, what brings you to come and see me. And I can meet someone wherever they're at. And what I want to do is help them kind of fully understand this idea of health not being about appearance and weight, about the focus being on well-being, and about the focus being on positive actions that a person can take, no matter where they're at, that is in line and in the direction of where they want their well-being to go. So so you don't set goals around things you can't control, and you really can't control your weight. So we it's okay for a client to say, well, I still am hoping I'll lose weight. Like, I can let them be in that place, because it would be magical for someone to be in diet culture, be traumatized by diets, and come in and say, I don't really care if I lose weight or not. Like, it would be an unrealistic expectation, but they're there to see me for a reason. And so I am there to be neutral and compassionate where they can't be compassionate, and connect in some way so that they understand the scope that this is about well-being. It is about changing habits in a way that feels good, that it may not be easy. I mean, I've never seen a case where changing habits is easy or uneventful, but it's really about helping improve their mindset and taking that critic voice that's been conditioned and turning it into more of a caregiver voice. Anyone with a weight concern, I'm always asking about labs and also a history of therapy and anything that I might be able to understand of where their mental well-being is. And if there is indeed a medical lab that could be improved through behavior, I also want to know family history. And I want to then talk about where their habits currently are, and then help associate where improvements to habits, right, actions they're taking or not taking, anything from, meal planning, shopping, balancing a plate, being flexible in the balanced plate, you have to talk to them about, well, what feels like a diet to you or not, kind of their interest in intuitive eating needs to be assessed, and interest in readiness, and kind of how you would approach that. So there's really a lot that goes in on an individual basis, but, I would definitely look at her labs and help her understand, the idea that it can, labs and being genetic, that it could take time to improve labs, that there are actions to take, and kind of where that might align. And then how I can help her focus her mental energy around positive actions that are doable for literally like week one, right? And then, and how to work with this mindset, because the inner critic usually will get louder, will tell you you're going to fail, will tell you that this isn't enough. It'll be like, no, you really should go do that HCG. Look how good so-and-so looks, or it'll say things like, this is too much work. There's no way you're going to succeed. And this critic becomes our belief system. And so it's like, from get-go, I am trying to help people understand that there is a thought bully, a critical voice that doesn't want you to succeed, that you need to learn to tolerate, okay, here's this voice, but I don't have to listen to it. What would my caregiver say? What would I tell my kids? What would I tell a group of Girl Scouts if I was speaking? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
We can't find that voice right away. And early on, that's what I'm trying to help them. I'm trying to help them believe in this better future, even if they want to lose weight at the current moment. Believe in the better future, and that the right path is a path that's focused on well-being, and just, allowing weight concerns to kind of be in the car, but they're more like in the back seat, they're not in the driver's seat, and then letting the client be in the driver's seat, and I'm kind of in the passenger seat, helping to navigate. And I just think that's a better approach. What do you think about like that, just in general, someone who doesn't counsel on a regular basis, but like you said, like you have your own concerns about your body changing, and how to be a good role model for your girls and everything?
No, I think that focusing on those small, doable, practical changes that are in line with what the client is capable of doing is certainly the best approach. Because, I think people try to, okay, I'm going to quit sugar, or I'm going to quit drinking, or I'm going to quit whatever it is. And yeah, maybe you make it a day or two, and when you try to cold turkey things, and some people can cold turkey, and props to those that can. But for the most part, when you just try to make these drastic changes, just like the person that I spoke of earlier that was doing the Whole30, she looked miserable, and she was, fighting these cravings and all this crazy stuff. And will she succeed? Potentially, because she's putting it all out there on social media to 1 million people. That's probably her driving factor. To the rest of everyone else, that's you're setting yourself up for frustration, for negative feelings, for feelings of deprivation. And if you can totally turn that on its head, and instead of, I can't do this and I can't do this, say, I can do this. All right, let's do this instead. And like you said, having that cheerleader and that positive coach, and not the person that says, I hope to see less of you next time you come in my office, but the person that says, I can't wait to hear how you achieved your goals. And, these very doable goals that we set up together, and helped you come up with a strategy on how you can win to do this. That to me just changes everything. And it puts it all in such a better light. And that not only will, in the long run, likely affect their physical health, but it will also make a huge impact on their mental health and just the way they treat themselves in the long run. And it's about positivity. I mean, just body positive is exactly where that's coming from. And I certainly think that is the better way to go, because no one wants to be told you don't look good, or this or that, or, this is wrong with you and this is negative with you. They want to be built up. And when they can have those cheerleaders that are educated and that understand and have that, a broad sense of, here's how we can help you achieve these goals, not necessarily doctor or trainer in the gym, or, or some dietitians even, that's going to say, these really numbers are looking high. If, according to your BMI, you're a 35. That means you're obese. So let's sit here and go down to 1,200 calories and come back and see me in a week, and maybe you'll have some weight off. That's frustrating, and that's hard. And odds are, if that person doesn't achieve what they think that the person that they're going back to see wants to see, they may or may not go back. And then they're just going down another road, another spiral. So, my hope is that there are more people and more dietitians that we can help identify, and maybe it's a nutritionist, maybe it's a therapist, maybe it doesn't, whoever it is, but that has the education and that can work with these clients or really anybody to say, okay, let's flip the mindset, and let's do this in a positive way, and let's help you achieve your goals. It's the same thing. It's setting those small positive goals and making changes. And I do the same thing when I help people with meal planning. I do a lot of talks about meal planning. And the number one thing I see is there's some people that are doing it, they're doing it great, and they know what they're feeding their family for the next week or month or whatever. And then there's some like me that it's like, oh crap, it's 5 o'clock and my girls are looking at me with wide eyes and are hungry, and what am I going to do? And so I help people come up with strategies, and we look at, okay, let's not worry about 21 meals a week that we're going to plan. Let's start off with 3, because science says 3 family meals a week have these big long-term benefits. So let's come up with, how can we do 3 meals, and then we'll build on that. So it's the same kind of idea. Yeah, it's the same type of idea that whether it's weight, whether it's, whatever it is, when you set those massive goals for yourself that you may or may not be able to achieve without having to go to some extreme measure, you're setting yourself up for failure. Mm-hmm. So why not find ways to set yourself up for success? And having a coach, that's why I have a business coach. Having a coach like you, or like, the dietitian or someone that's helping to teach body kindness and acceptance, and setting those small positive goals to make little changes over time that then add up to big results is certainly the way to go. It's hard because people want those immediate quick results, whatever they think that result should be. But at the end of the day, it takes the work. So why not make the work fun and doable so that you can get there and be proud of yourself?
Yeah. Well, no, it's a really great comparison. And it's also like, if you were to do these elaborate meal plans, that were way outside of the person's budget, right? Like, that reminds me of like, okay, well, if you promise weight loss as an outcome, if they just cut these calories, well, the body's going to fight back against that. And it's basically setting up for failure. If you do this elaborate meal plan and it's outside this person's budget and skill set, it's never going to work. So
you're just going to go through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
You're just going to throw your hands up and
go do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and that's why it is really important to understand habits and how people change behavior. Mindset is a very important aspect of that. Being positive, not in a Pollyanna kind of way, but looking for the bright side of things, looking for the optimistic side of things, because we're all going to be tired and we're going to see that we scheduled a workout. We're not going to want to do that. Well, if the current habit is, screw it, I'm not going to do anything and I suck anyway, and there I go failing and kind of like sabotaging right away, I might work with a client on, we plan and schedule certain workouts, but if something happens, what are ways that they could work through a resistance that they might have to the workout? So how could they acknowledge fatigue and maybe adjust what they might do for movement that might feel a little bit more caregiving? Or maybe it truly is body kindness for them to go ahead and skip the workout, but they're not going to belittle themselves over it, that it really was a body kindness choice, and that missing one workout doesn't suddenly make a person unhealthy. And that is something that I also wanted to get across, as far as like when you're helping people change behaviors, is that and again, I don't think we get this really good in our dietetics training, but through conferences and reading books and helping clients and working with therapists, it's just this idea of that our thoughts and feelings can impact our choices as well. So, when we do that initial planning and we have focus and saying, okay, yes, I'll put weight loss on the back burner. Yes, I'm going to focus on, a healthy relationship with food and healthy patterns of eating, right? And that's not just as the broccoli on the plate, but that's just the intuitive eating elements. But then there's elements of like, pretty much every day, I find myself grazing for a snack at night. Like if a client points to any signs of emotional soothing with food, I know that they have a difficulty with emotion regulation. And that no amount of meal planning resolves that. What actually resolves that is mindfulness, meditation, practice, and self-compassion. It's some of it is stuff I can do with clients. Other is stuff that I refer, but helping them understand that they are not broken, right? And so that it truly is, people start to evolve and they become a different person, because right now they're the kind of person who, if the day goes wrong, they gravitate to food, and they don't like that. That's not creating a better life. Well, putting them on HCG isn't going to be the long-term solution. Doing Whole30 isn't the long-term solution. It may work in the short term, but something's going to happen. They're off Whole30, they gave up, their body fight back, whatever, stress, and all of a sudden they're going to be back to that habituated pattern of emotional eating. So we will address, the best way to address emotional eating is in a weight inclusive way. This is not, let's separate this away from appearance or anything. I've dealt with clients with emotional regulation issues at all weights and shapes. But to identify that is the issue, here's how I can help you with it. Here are some tools I recommend. And I don't hesitate, I say, I don't like to fly solo. So I don't hesitate when I'm feeling like we need to really add a therapist in here to deal with what we'd call like root issues. So if you think of the analogy of a tree, the meal planning and a lot of stuff that you might do in blogging and talks are like the leaves of the tree. The trunk of the tree are things that I might do in a counseling session, thoughts and feelings that influence choices, body image concerns, and deeper below are root issues, things that, jokingly might be above our pay grades and more for therapy, but that we understand. It could have been trauma, childhood abuse, alcoholism in a family, parents putting kids on diets, all types of things that influence their well-being now that literally make it difficult, if not impossible, to change their habits on their own. That layered with the diet culture reinforcing the trauma, it's like we need, in a counseling scenario, we need to understand that all these things may be at play and that our concern for them should be safety first and understanding what does this client need to feel safe. And for some clients, it's not the balanced plate day one. Day one, it's really understanding where they feel safe, where they feel unsafe, and giving them some amount of tools and skills that they could start to practice. And when they see, wow, this is different, this is new. That's why there's a ton of journaling and throughout Body Kindness, because thinking and reflecting and writing is very healing to past negative experiences, traumatic experiences. And you start to open up and realize, yes, it sucks tolerating diet culture, but oh my God, I have way much more important work to do on me. So let me do me while I deal with crappy diet culture hovering around me, because I care about this work more. I care about me more. I care about my better life. And then that will better help me with my kids, with my clients, with my sister's friend, whatever. And that I think people need to do too. So
I completely agree. No, I think that I'm a big fan of seeking therapy and you got to work on yourself first before you can help others. And so I wish more people did it, and hopefully that will become the norm, and it will be covered by insurance and all those things that there's a lot of people that need it that may not be able to pay out of pocket for it, and so they're kind of stuck where they are. But that this will be an area that is more dietitians and therapists and whatnot are coming into the field, that it's an area that they look at and they adopt into their practice. And, like you said, going back to the very beginning, there's been a lot of changes probably since you and I were in school to the curriculum in dietetics, but hopefully there will be more opportunities for dietitians, especially ones that are interested in counseling, to go on and either do additional classes in psychology and in therapy and counseling and whatnot, or that it's covered from a nutrition standpoint so that we can help as dietitians, and then also know how to partner with other mental health professionals to be able to dig deep and find out what that root cause is, and then build out from there. But I think there's a lot to it, and it's deeply personal for everyone. And it's sad to me to think, especially that statistic that you threw out at the beginning, about 80%, that there are that many people walking around not feeling great, not feeling their happiest, and feeling like their best self. And you just think, what would the world be like if that number was reversed and there were only 20 people that were there? And I mean, like you said, it's a little bit of Pollyanna thinking, but I don't think that it is not something that we can't continue to strive for. And it's going to take small steps, and it's going to take people saying and getting out there, and probably some of the celebrities too, to say, you know what, okay, I've been a chronic dieter my whole life, but now I'm doing this, and I love myself, and I've worked through these challenges, and I sought help of this person and that person, and here's where I am, and I'm kicking ass and taking names, So I definitely think that this has been a very helpful talk, and hopefully people that are in the same position as me, where maybe they've had kids or they've thought, okay, where do I have this must be thin mindset. Let's kind of dig a little deeper and think, really? Or, why am I thinking this? Is this because of culture is what it's telling me to do? Or do I have some other issues that I need to think through first? I think certainly, like you said, having that caregiving mindset. So when it is in a blog post or like going back to the meal planning, whatever that would be, whether a lot of what I write and what I share is based on questions that I get. I mean, I would say 90% of it comes from people asking me about things, or I talk to groups and the questions that I field. So, and a lot of it's from observation as well of what are people talking about on social media. I do a lot of listening or a lot of reading. And so figuring out where my stance is and with that caregiving mindset and how I weave in those positive messages into my blog and into my posts to help build people up versus tear people down, I think makes a huge difference.
Yes, I love that. And, just a tip, friend to friend who, because I have a critic too, and I've learned to master that critic. And certainly the book will be very, very helpful as you continue in your reading. And, I have people who are saying that they're rereading or redoing certain parts. So it's meant to be that type of a tool. But, friend to friend, that voice is going to come back. And I have just created the habit of noticing when I'm doing that harsh judgment bashing that I know is so unhelpful. And I just take a deep breath and literally just try to connect with myself for a second. Sometimes it's hand on heart. Sometimes it's just, just in that breath. Right. And I either say it, if I'm alone, I'll say it out loud, or just in my mind, I literally just say, I love you, and remembering that I do love myself, even if I made a mistake, or even if, there is something that I'm dissatisfied with about my habits or my body, like whatever it is, I don't care. I'm going to go back to, hey, I love you. And then that can kind of help me make that next best choice. So as you're working through whatever sort of habits you do want to fix, I would highly encourage you to keep reminding yourself of that diet culture that's going to push you into reminiscing about past body. Focus it on the actions that you do believe are more caregiving. And when you hear that negativity come up, just remember that that you are inherently good, just as you are, and that you do love and respect yourself. And that for me is always super, super helpful. So. Oh,
I completely agree. That's great. And such a good reminder too. I'm actually writing some notes. I have some good notes that I've already taken from this conversation just to be able to, apply to my life as well. So hopefully the listeners have hung on with us and we'll have some good feedback. I certainly am excited for when people listen to this to hear what stories they share and read more about how this conversation hopefully helped them or gave them some insight or made them think in a certain way or question something else. So hopefully they are able to take back something from this as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And where can people connect with you again?
I'm at holleygranger.com. And then if you go to the website, all the social media connections are right there. Sometimes that's the easiest way. Just hit the website, holleygranger.com, and I'm across the board, all the social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. But that's where you can find me.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you the best, and we'll stay in touch and see how you're doing.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. I would love if you could take a minute and leave a rating and review on iTunes. I know they don't make it very easy, so I have a few quick tips for you. First, launch the Apple Podcast app, and then you're going to click the search button to enter the name Body Kindness, and you'll find my podcast. You'll see the album art. And when you click on the album art, there is going to be a button in the middle at the top. It's called Reviews. Click that, and then when you scroll to the bottom, you will see an option to leave a review. And so you'll click that button and go ahead and write your thoughts. I also would love ideas for future episodes. You can email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. Again, that's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. I love chatting about the show and how it's helpful. And so keep those emails coming. And also, if you're not yet completed with the e-course, don't forget that's a free resource for anyone who's interested in practicing body kindness. If you visit bodykindnessbook.com and click on Get Started, just enter in your name and email and you'll get instant access. I'll see you there.